Isabella stepped into the dimly lit office, the scent of expensive leather and cologne immediately hitting her. Behind the massive mahogany desk sat Lorenzo Romano, the infamous Mafia boss, his dark eyes fixed on her like a predator sizing up its prey. The room was tense, electric, and she felt her pulse quicken despite herself. "You're here," he said, his deep voice smooth but commanding. "I'll be direct. I need a wife, for appearances, for alliances, a contract marriage. You benefit. I benefit. Nothing more." Isabella straightened her spine, trying not to shiver at the subtle rasp in his tone. "And why would I agree to this?" she asked, masking the flutter of nerves in her chest. "Because," he leaned forward and the movement made her stomach twist, "you need protection. You need wealth. And you, Isabella. I need control of my empire's optics. That's all." His hand brushed against hers as he slid the papers toward her, casual but deliberate. A jolt shot through her at the contact. She could feel the heat of him, the sheer magnetism that emanated from his dangerous aura. Her pulse raced, her lips suddenly dry. "And if I say no?" she dared, though her voice trembled. Lorenzo's gaze hardened, dark and intense. "Then you leave and I forget you exist, but make no mistake," he added, voice dropping to a low, intoxicating growl, "I don't forget easily." Isabella swallowed hard. Something in his stare, in the dangerous curve of his lips, made her heart hammer against her ribs. She wanted to resist, but her body betrayed her, leaning ever so slightly closer, drawn to him in a way she didn't understand. "Sign," he said, his fingers now brushing hers again. This time lingering longer, sending sparks through her entire body. "Or walk away. But remember, you'll never feel a touch like mine again." Her hand shook as she reached for the pen. The contract promised nothing but formality, but the tension between them promised everything, and Isabella realized with a shiver she couldn't hide, that this marriage would be far more dangerous, and far more tempting, than she ever imagined. The grand hall glittered with crystal chandeliers, a crowd of elites murmuring about the Mafia wedding. Isabella walked down the aisle in a silk gown that clung to every curve, feeling eyes on her. But it was Lorenzo's gaze that burned hotter than the chandeliers above. Cold, composed, but with an undercurrent of something raw and dangerous that made her knees weak. The ceremony passed in a blur, vows spoken with perfect detachment, but every subtle glance between them held a hidden charge. When the crowd finally left, the mansion's doors closed behind them, leaving Isabella alone with Lorenzo in the dimly lit suite. He stepped close, the scent of his cologne intoxicating. "You look irresistible," he murmured, voice low and husky, as if sharing a secret she wasn't supposed to hear. His hand brushed hers, not a casual touch, but a claiming, possessive brush that made her heart race. Isabella tried to keep her composure, but the heat of his presence was suffocating. He circled her, eyes dark, scanning her like he wanted to memorize every inch. "Do you know what it means to be mine, Isabella?" His fingers traced a dangerous path along her jawline, tilting her face toward his. Her breath hitched. I signed the contract," she whispered, trying to sound strong, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Signed, yes," he growled, his lips brushing the shell of her ear. "But contracts don't dictate desire." His hand slid lower, resting possessively on her waist. The friction of his touch made her shiver uncontrollably. Before she could protest, he captured her lips in a kiss, sharp, demanding, and full of a possessive heat that stole her breath. Every second against him was intoxicating, dangerous, and utterly consuming. As he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "Tonight you'll learn that being mine isn't about papers. It's about what I want. And I want you, Isabella." She swallowed hard, her body alight with desire she hadn't expected. The marriage was supposed to be a contract. Yet in that moment, as his hands held her close, she realized it was already so much more. The villa was vast, cold, and intimidating, yet Isabella couldn't deny the thrill that ran through her as she stepped inside. Every room screamed power, wealth, and Lorenzo. He followed her silently, eyes dark and unreadable, but the way he watched her made her pulse race. When she tried to unpack, he appeared behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. His hand brushed her shoulder, lingered at her waist, and sent shivers down her spine. "This is your home now," he said, voice low, commanding. "But remember, everything here belongs to me. Including you." Isabella bit her lip, a flush creeping up her neck. "I know," she murmured, though a part of her wanted to protest. His presence was intoxicating, dangerous, possessive, irresistible. Days passed and the tension between them only grew. Lorenzo's casual touches were never casual. his fingers lingering on her hip as they walked through the halls, his thumb brushing the inside of her wrist, the heat of his body dangerously close whenever they passed in narrow corridors. Every look he gave made her heart stutter. One evening as she prepared for bed, Lorenzo appeared behind her again. "Do you think you can resist me?" he asked, his lips near her ear, his breath hot against her skin. His hand slid lower, tracing the curve of her back, teasing her with a possessive familiarity. Isabella swallowed hard, trembling. I don't know," she admitted, the truth escaping her despite herself. He chuckled darkly, pressing a heated kiss to her shoulder. "You will learn quickly," he murmured, his hands exploring just enough to make her ache without giving release. "Because I don't like waiting, and I don't like sharing." She shivered under his touch, her body betraying her resolve. Every glance, every brush of his hand, every low growl from him pulled her deeper into a world she hadn't expected, but couldn't resist. Their marriage was supposed to be a contract, yet living under the same roof had made one thing clear. The line between control, desire, and something dangerously like love was already blurring. The gala glittered with wealth and power, but Isabella felt every eye on her, and it wasn't just the crowd that made her pulse race. Lorenzo was close by, his dark gaze following her every movement like a predator. She wore a dress that clung to her curves, daringly low at the back, and she could sense his possessive tension even before she noticed the slight tightening of his jaw. A charming businessman approached, offering her a smile and a whispered compliment that made her cheeks warm. Isabella smiled politely, but it was Lorenzo's reaction that stole her attention. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them, his hand brushing the small of her back as he leaned in, his voice a low growl. "I don't like him touching you," he murmured, teeth just grazing her ear. The possessiveness in his tone made her shiver, and heat pooled in her stomach. The man hesitated, sensing the dangerous aura around Lorenzo, and quickly moved away. But Isabella's gaze stayed locked on her husband, feeling an intoxicating mix of fear and desire. His hand lingered on her waist, fingers pressing into her skin, and she realized just how much she craved his attention, even his jealousy. Later, in the privacy of the car ride home, Lorenzo's hands roamed over her body with controlled intensity. "Do you know how it feels to see someone else want what's mine?" he asked, voice thick with possessive hunger. His lips brushed her shoulder, then her neck, teasing, tasting, claiming. Isabella's breath caught, her body aching for more. I don't want anyone else," she whispered, trembling under his touch. "Good," he growled, pressing his body closer, his hands roaming lower, igniting every nerve. "Because you're mine. Only mine. And I intend to make sure you never forget it." By the time they reached the villa, Isabella's resolve had crumbled. His jealousy, once intimidating, had become an erotic force she couldn't resist. Every touch, every possessive whisper, made her realize just how dangerous and intoxicating this contract marriage was becoming. The villa was silent except for the low hum of the city outside. Isabella was arranging books in the study when Lorenzo appeared, his presence filling the room like a storm. He didn't announce himself, he never did. She felt him before she saw him, heat radiating from his body. "Do you know what it does to me?" he asked, voice low and rough, stepping closer until she could feel the heat of his chest against her back. "Seeing others look at you, wanting you." Isabella's breath hitched and a shiver ran down her spine. "Lorenzo," she started, but the caution in her tone faltered under his intense gaze. He leaned over her, his lips dangerously close to her ear. "I don't just want you because it's convenient. I want you because you make me lose control." His hand slid over her waist, pressing her against the desk with possessive force. The sharp friction of his touch made her knees weak, and she gasped involuntarily. I can't," she whispered, torn between fear and desire. "You can," he murmured, tilting her chin up so she met his eyes. "Because you feel it too. That heat, that tension, you can't hide it from me, Isabella. And I don't want you to." He captured her lips in a fierce, demanding kiss, his tongue exploring, claiming, testing boundaries. Every second against him was intoxicating, dangerous, consuming. Her hands instinctively tangled in his hair, pulling him closer as her body pressed against his. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers, eyes dark with desire and something softer, something unspoken. "This contract, it's supposed to keep things simple," he murmured, voice rough. "But it's already failed. I can't stop wanting you. And soon, neither will you." Isabella's pulse raced, heat pooling in places that begged for more. The marriage that was meant to be a transaction was quickly becoming something entirely different. Something far hotter, far more dangerous, and far more irresistible than she had ever imagined. The call came late at night, an urgent warning. A rival family had gotten wind of Isabella's presence and intended to use her as leverage against Lorenzo. The villa's alarms rang, but Lorenzo didn't wait. He stormed into her room, dark eyes blazing, every muscle taut with controlled fury. "You're mine," he growled, his voice low, dangerous. "No one touches you. No one lays eyes on you without consequence." His hand gripped her waist, pulling her flush against his chest. Isabella's body trembled, not from fear, not entirely, but from the raw, intoxicating power he radiated. He captured her lips in a possessive, scorching kiss, hands roaming over her curves with a hunger that left her breathless. "You belong to me," he murmured against her skin, tracing the line of her jaw with his teeth, making her shiver. "And I'll remind you of that, often." Isabella gasped as his hands slid lower, teasing, claiming. She pressed back instinctively, lost in the danger, the heat, the undeniable desire that had been simmering between them for weeks. Hours later, in the safety of the hidden panic room, Lorenzo held her close, his body taut with unspent tension. Every brush of his hand, every heated whisper against her ear, reminded her that this was more than a contract. It was possessive, erotic, and utterly consuming. "Do you understand what you do to me?" he asked, voice rough, lips brushing her temple. "I see someone else even glance at you and I can't think of anything but claiming you, owning you. Right here. Right now." Isabella's cheeks flushed, heat pooling between her thighs as she pressed against him. I don't want anyone else," she whispered, trembling under the intensity of his gaze and touch. "Good," he growled, kissing her shoulder, then her neck, hands sliding over her body with deliberate erotic intent. "Because I don't like waiting, and I don't forgive easily. Tonight you're mine, completely. And I intend to make sure you feel it." In that moment, the danger outside the walls was irrelevant. Inside, it was just them, possessive, burning, and achingly aware that their contract marriage had already become something far hotter, far more dangerous, and far more irresistible than either of them had anticipated. The villa was sealed tight, guards posted at every entrance. Outside, danger lingered. Inside, the air between Isabella and Lorenzo was thick with heat, tension, and everything they had been avoiding. They were confined to the upper wing, the silence broken only by the distant murmur of armed men below. Isabella stood near the window, trying to steady her breathing, when Lorenzo approached her from behind. Slowly. Deliberately. "You're shaking," he murmured, his hands settling on her hips, firm and grounding. "Is it fear, or me?" She swallowed hard, leaning back into him despite herself. "You already know the answer," she whispered. His lips brushed the sensitive skin just below her ear, sending a wave of warmth through her. "I've never liked being trapped," he said softly. "But with you?" His grip tightened, possessive. "I don't want to escape." He turned her to face him, dark eyes searching hers with a hunger he no longer tried to hide. The kiss he gave her was slow, controlled, but loaded with restraint barely holding. His thumb traced her lower lip, a silent promise that made her pulse race. "I see how you look at me," Isabella breathed. "Like you're holding yourself back." A dangerous smile curved his lips. "Because if I don't," he said quietly, "I won't stop." The admission sent a thrill through her. She pressed her palms against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, steady but powerful. "Then don't," she whispered. Lorenzo exhaled sharply, resting his forehead against hers. His hands slid along her back, pulling her close, claiming without crossing the line. Yet, the restraint made it worse. Better. 4 hours they remained tangled together, sharing whispered confessions, lingering touches, stolen kisses that promised far more than they gave. Outside threats faded into nothing compared to the war raging between desire and control. By the time night fell, Isabella knew one thing with certainty. This wasn't lust born of danger. It was something deeper. Something neither of them could walk away from, no matter how hard they tried. The morning after the standoff, Isabella felt the weight of everything, danger, tension, and the undeniable desire simmering between her and Lorenzo. But today the heat of their connection clashed with frustration. Lorenzo stood across the room, arms crossed, jaw tight. His dark gaze followed her every movement, and every glance was a mix of warning, jealousy, and hunger. Isabella tried to keep her composure, but the memory of last night's intimate touches made her knees weak. "You were too close to him," Lorenzo said, voice low, controlled but taut with possessive anger. "I saw the way he looked at you. I don't like it. Not one bit." Isabella's pulse quickened, not just from fear, but from the possessive fire in his tone. "He didn't mean anything," she whispered, cheeks flushed. "It's not like that." His eyes darkened, and he closed the distance between them in a few long, tense steps. His hand slid along her arm, brushing the sensitive skin with deliberate, teasing pressure. "It does mean something. You belong to me, mind, body, and soul. And I'll remind you of that every time I have to." She trembled, caught between frustration and arousal. "You make it impossible to think clearly," she admitted, voice low. "That's the point," he growled, pressing a heated kiss to her neck. His hands roamed with a possessive hunger that left her breathless, igniting every nerve. The anger in his words only made the touch feel more dangerous, more intoxicating. She pressed back instinctively, letting the tension dissolve into desire. Every possessive glance, every controlled growl, every teasing touch made it clear. Their marriage was no longer a simple contract. It was a battlefield of emotions, lust, and unspoken need. When he finally pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, Isabella realized something she hadn't allowed herself before. She wanted this, wanted him in every way, despite the jealousy, despite the danger, despite the rules they had agreed upon. Lorenzo's smoldering gaze lingered on her, promising that their conflict would never end, and neither would their desire. The explosion rocked the villa, sending glass and dust flying. Isabella screamed as Lorenzo grabbed her, pulling her into the safety of his arms. His dark eyes, usually so controlled, were wide with fear and raw intensity. "You're safe," he growled, pressing her against his chest, every protective instinct flaring. "I won't let anyone touch you. Do you understand?" She clung to him, heart racing, not just from fear but from the heat of his closeness. His hands gripped her waist, pulling her impossibly close, as if letting go was not an option. The danger outside faded into nothing compared to the fire burning between them. Isabella gasped, words caught in her throat. "You don't have to say it," Lorenzo murmured, lips brushing the side of her neck. "I've been patient. I've restrained myself because of the contract, because of you. But no more." His hands roamed over her body, claiming her with a possessive hunger that left her breathless. "I want you, all of you," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Not because we signed papers, but because I can't imagine anyone else touching you, looking at you, loving you the way I do." Isabella's knees weakened as his lips found hers in a kiss that was feral, desperate, and possessive. Every ounce of desire, jealousy, and longing they had tried to suppress exploded in that one consuming moment. When they finally pulled apart, Lorenzo held her face between his hands, eyes dark with emotion. "I love you, Isabella," he confessed, his voice rough, intimate. "Not the contract. Not the arrangement. All of you. And I'll spend every day proving it." Her heart hammered as warmth pooled in her chest, and elsewhere. I love you too," she admitted, trembling. For the first time, the marriage wasn't a contract. It was a union of lust, passion, and undeniable love, forged through possessive desire, danger, and the fire of jealousy. And both of them knew deep down there was no turning back. The morning sun streamed through the villa's windows, casting a warm glow over the sprawling mansion. Isabella lay in Lorenzo's arms, the steady beat of his heart against hers a reminder of everything they had survived, and everything they had become together. No contract could define what they shared now. Every touch, every kiss, every heated glance was theirs alone. Lorenzo's possessive fingers traced the curve of her back, eliciting soft gasps that made his chest rise with desire. "You're mine," he murmured, voice low and husky, lips brushing the sensitive skin of her neck. "Every part of you. And I'll never let you forget it." Isabella shivered under his touch, pressing closer. "I don't want to be anyone else's," she whispered, voice trembling with need. "Good," he growled, capturing her lips in a kiss that was deep, claiming, and impossibly intense. Hands roamed, exploring the familiar curves of her body with the same hunger that had ignited months ago. Every kiss, every caress, was a reminder that their connection had grown beyond desire. It had become love, fierce and unrelenting. Later, in the quiet of the villa, they moved together with a passion that left no doubt. The heat between them was no longer just erotic. It was a promise, a bond forged through jealousy, danger, and relentless longing. Every gasp, every whispered name sealed the truth. They belonged to each other, completely. As the night fell, Lorenzo held Isabella close, lips brushing her forehead, hands wrapped around her like a shield. "No one can touch you," he whispered, possessive, tender, and filled with love. "I'm yours. And you're mine. Always." Isabella rested her head against his chest, heartbeat syncing with his. Always, she agreed, a smile tugging at her lips, her body still humming with the memory of their passion. The contract was gone. The marriage was real. Desire, love, and possession intertwined, creating a bond stronger than any agreement. And in the quiet of the villa, with the world outside full of danger, Isabella and Lorenzo finally understood the truth. Their marriage had started as a transaction, but it ended as a fire, wild, consuming, and utterly unstoppable.